When people talk about a big, powerful organization, be it a church, state, or corporation, they tend to only focus on the leadership. What a president, CEO, or lead bishop says is perceived as a position of the whole institution and is often extrapolated to common members. These leaders are also often believed to rule their empires almost single-handedly. The role of the leadership is indeed very important. What the president of a country, big corporation, or a church leader says and does actually matters. However, reducing this whole huge body to only one leader is naive and superficial. There are few people who genuinely think that whatever Putin says is the standpoint of Russia and Russians. Whether you like him or not, most realize that Russia is too huge and diverse to think alike. Although I have heard an opinion that all Russians are responsible for Putin's regime and the war in Ukraine, whether they voted for him or not, even such people are aware that no matter how influential and charismatic, one person cannot rule the biggest country on the planet with a 146 million population. When it comes to the Orthodox Church, people tend to know much less about her, especially outsiders. Not just the media and political scientists, but even some of my colleagues, scholars of religion, reduce the church to her patriarch and maybe a couple of the most important bishops and spokesmen. This is just as naive and superficial as believing that Putin represents all Russians. The church is more than 1,000 years old. It consists of millions of people, and it is enormously diverse and complex. Even if we focus on formal institutes of the church and state alone, they are still too complex to have common interests in each and every aspect of life. Let us put them together and compare. It is no coincidence that the structure of power in Russian state and Russian church are very similar. For more than 900 years, the church was a part of the state power, even if in a different capacity. Even though since 1918 Soviet Russia and now the new Russia is officially a secular state, the church still keeps the structure of power that fits well into the whole country. There are 3 levels of power in the state and church: federal, regional, and local. On the federal level, the state is represented by 3 branches of power: executive, legislative, and judicial. The executive level is the president with his apparatus and the government headed by the prime minister. The legislative power is the parliament, consisting of 2 houses, the Federation Council and the State Duma. The judicial power is the constitutional and supreme courts. Even though most critics say that all 3 branches of power are in fact controlled by the president, they still perform a lot of important functions in state governance. The church has some rudimentary branches of power too, yet the real power dynamic is much more overt. Formally, the supreme body in the church is 2 councils, the Bishop's Council and the Local Council, which includes not only bishops but also priests and some laymen. These councils, however, are called irregularly, for instance, for the election of a new patriarch. Most of the time, the church is operated by the Holy Synod, in which the patriarch presides. There are permanent members of the synod, bishops of the most important eparchies or administrative positions in the church, and rotating temporary members representing smaller eparchies. The patriarch's apparatus is called the Moscow Patriarchate. There is also a church court, but it is almost directly controlled by the Patriarch. Next, the regional level. The Russian Federation is divided into subjects. Those can be a republic, oblast, krai, okrug, and even a city. There are currently 89 subjects, including 6 territories annexed from Ukraine and not recognized internationally. This number includes 3 cities: Moscow, St. Petersburg, and the annexed Sevastopol in Crimea. The subjects are headed either by a president, if it's a republic, a governor, or a mayor of Moscow. All subjects have 2 other branches of power as well: regional parliaments and courts. The church is represented by regional eparchies. Sometimes they can be bigger or smaller than a state subjects, depending on the size of the region and its Orthodox population. There are also foreign eparchies that can again include several countries. All eparchies are headed by a bishop, the biggest and most influential ones by a metropolitan, and the others by an archbishop or bishop. Moscow is headed by the Patriarch of Moscow and all Rus. Big eparchies may also have vicar bishops who do not have cathedrals of their own, but are responsible for some important departments or territories. The local level is smaller territorial units, towns, counties, or city districts. They are governed by heads of administration and have local courts. These units have the most interaction with citizens apart from elections. All current everyday issues are typically resolved on this level. The Church has a similar situation. On the local level, she is represented by either a parish headed by a priest or a monastery. Needless to say, parish priests are the ones in constant contact with the faithful. They perform most sacraments, provide believers with spiritual care and support, and have direct interaction with them. Monasteries, with the exception of Stavropighialny that respond directly to the Patriarch, represent the monastic life on the local level. Now, these levels of power often have conflicting interests. Moreover, different subjects on the same level may compete for influence and limited resources. With the state, the brightest example of this would be elections. Everybody knows that Putin and whoever he supports would win. However, while the federal level needs more transparency to gain legitimacy, regions and especially local units compete for the display of loyalty by trying to show better voter turnout and the support of the winning candidate. The Church has deeper issues within her levels of power that could be traced centuries back. One of the systemic problems in the Church is the gap between bishops and priests, especially married priests, who make up the majority in local parishes. As I have said, priests have the most interaction with the faithful, while bishops accumulate resources and power. In the 17th century, this tension led to the Great Schism and the emergence of old believers. Now, the conflict is still there, although covert. As we can see, since 2022, there have been hundreds of priests suspended or defrocked for the opposition to war in Ukraine. Yet, there is no bishop expressing anything but support for the war. The structure of power does not always work exactly in the way I have demonstrated. There are all sorts of exceptions and processes that work beyond these levels. However, this general principle has worked for centuries for both the state and the Church, and we can see that even on the very formal level of the official power hierarchy, both the state and the Church are too complex to be reduced to just the leadership. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I see you all next time.